My best friend changed plans and informed me at the last minute. Now I'm freaking out. I'm not sure what to do about it. The weight of this situation has been gnawing at me since my phone lit up with her text. It's strange how life throws you into dilemmas like this, making you question everything: your boundaries, your loyalty, and your capacity for patience. My best friend and I have shared almost everything for as long as I can remember. She and I met during our first week of college. Back then, we were just two awkward 18-year-olds trying to figure out where we belonged in a sea of strangers. It started with a shared laugh over our mutual inability to decipher our class schedules, and before we knew it, we were inseparable. Over the years, our friendship had become one of those rare, deeply entrenched bonds where words were often unnecessary, where silences spoke louder, and where secrets were exchanged without fear of judgment. 7 years can do that to people. We live close to each other now, though our living situations couldn't be more different. She lives with her family in their picturesque, immaculately maintained home that's always bustling with life, tradition, and expectations. I, on the other hand, live in a shared apartment with two flatmates who, while friendly enough, tend to keep their personal lives and their living spaces firmly separate. The contrast between our homes often mirrors the differences in how we navigate life: her with cautious obedience to her parents' stringent expectations, and me with a fierce, though sometimes reckless, independence. And then there's her boyfriend. The first time she told me about him, I could hear the nervous excitement in her voice, the kind that only surfaces when someone's speaking about a person who's effortlessly taken root in their heart. He's different, she'd said, in a way that told me just how smitten she was. I could picture her blushing through the phone. He was a year younger than her, which she joked about often, calling him her younger man. The real complications, however, were less humorous. Her parents, devoutly religious and steadfast in their conservative worldview, would never approve of him. It wasn't just about him being from a different socio-economic background, although that alone would be an unscalable mountain in their eyes. It was everything about him, his upbringing, his city, his entire life that didn't fit neatly into the mold her parents had envisioned for the person she'd one day marry. That ideal man would be of the same faith, someone deeply rooted in tradition, and of course, someone who met their silent yet rigid expectations for status and respectability. Her boyfriend, by contrast, was warm, witty, and disarmingly genuine, but he was none of the things her parents would ever deem acceptable. This disparity between their worlds meant that their relationship had to exist in the shadows. They had been together for 2 years now, navigating the exhausting tightrope of a long-distance relationship, punctuated by secret meetings whenever his work or her excuses allowed. I admired their resilience in the face of such constraints, but I couldn't ignore the toll it took on her. The lies, the half-truths, the constant anxiety, it all weighed her down more than she let on. Still, she was deeply in love with him, and I understood why. Despite the odds, he made her feel seen in a way no one else did. He was patient and attentive, always finding ways to make her laugh even when she felt trapped in her own life. Whenever she spoke about him, there was a glow in her voice, a happiness that even her strict upbringing couldn't suppress. But this love wasn't without its challenges, and I, as her best friend, often found myself caught in the middle. On one hand, I wanted to support her unconditionally, to give her the space and trust she needed to navigate this relationship. On the other hand, the secrecy, the complicated logistics, and the unspoken expectations she sometimes placed on me left me feeling uneasy. I wanted to be there for her, but I had my own boundaries, my own life, and my own need for clarity. This latest development, the unexpected morning visit, was just another layer to an already complex situation. It wasn't the first time her relationship had spilled into my world, but it was the first time it felt this invasive. As I sat in my messy room, her text glowing on my screen, I couldn't help but wonder, how far was too far when it came to helping the people we care about? He's planning to come see her tomorrow. She had been talking about this day for weeks now, her excitement palpable every time she brought it up. It wasn't just a routine visit, It was something they had meticulously planned, a rare opportunity for them to spend quality time together in person. Between their long-distance relationship and the oppressive scrutiny of her family, moments like these were precious, almost sacred. The plan had seemed simple enough. I was supposed to meet them for lunch at a cozy little cafe downtown. My best friend had chosen the place with care, one of those Instagram-worthy spots that served up colorful plates and artisanal coffee. From there, the three of us were supposed to head to the arcade nearby, a place that had recently become our favorite haunt for its nostalgic charm and silly games. We'd play skee-ball, challenge each other at air hockey, and laugh over our clumsy attempts at Dance Dance Revolution. It was supposed to be a light, fun afternoon, a way for me to bond with her boyfriend without the looming pressure of formality. Then, as evening approached, I'd head back to my apartment, leaving them to say their goodbyes in private before he left for the airport. For me, the day was perfectly compartmentalized. I had the morning free to myself, a rare luxury on a Sunday. I'd planned it out in my head. I'd sleep in, letting the morning sun creep lazily into my room while I indulged in the bliss of not setting an alarm. Once awake, I'd tackle the disaster zone that was my bedroom: piles of clothes on the chair, random papers scattered across the desk, and a floor that hadn't seen a vacuum in weeks. After restoring some order to my space, I'd finally get the mirror installed in my bathroom, a task I'd been putting off for far too long. The morning was supposed to be calm, productive, and mine. But at 7 in the evening, my phone buzzed with a message that threw everything into chaos. It was from my best friend. "Hey, I'll be at your place at 7:30 in the morning tomorrow." I stared at the screen, her words sinking in like a bucket of ice water. 7:30? In the morning? On a Sunday? The words didn't compute at first. I blinked, reading the message over and over, as if repetition would somehow make it make sense. It didn't. My heart sank with the realization that this was no typo. She genuinely intended to show up at the crack of dawn, completely derailing the morning I had carefully planned for myself. Immediately, I texted her back, trying to keep my tone neutral despite the frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Are you sure about the time? We agreed you'd come in the evening." I had plans for the morning. Her reply came just as quickly, and this time she called. Her voice carried a mixture of urgency and nervousness, a tone I recognized all too well from years of friendship. I know, she began, as if bracing herself for my inevitable pushback. "But his flight lands at 8 in the morning, and his hotel check-in isn't until noon. We don't have anywhere else to go, and I can't risk being seen with him in public." Her words hit me like a storm. It wasn't just her showing up at my place unannounced, it was her and her boyfriend. The boyfriend who, despite my best efforts to be open and supportive, was still a stranger to me. I'd met him once, in a crowded restaurant, where small talk and group dynamics shielded us from the discomfort of getting to know each other. Now, she was asking me to host him in my space, a space I considered my sanctuary, a place I wasn't comfortable sharing with just anyone. I swallowed my apprehension and asked, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" It wasn't an accusation, but the question hung heavy in the air. "I didn't know what else to do," she said, her voice small. "I didn't think it would be a problem. I mean, it's just for a few hours. He won't even come upstairs. We can hang out in the lobby if you'd prefer." The lobby. My apartment building's lobby was functional at best, a sparse area with stiff couches and blaring air conditioning. The idea of them sitting there, awkward and exposed, while I was comfortably holed up in my room felt wrong. But at the same time, the thought of having her boyfriend in my apartment made my stomach twist uncomfortably. It wasn't personal, or maybe it was. I simply didn't like the idea of anyone outside my inner circle crossing that invisible threshold into my private space, especially without sufficient notice. I wasn't prepared for guests, I finally said, my voice firmer than I intended. "The place is a mess, and I had plans to clean it up tomorrow morning." I wasn't expecting anyone until the afternoon. I know, and I'm sorry, she said quickly, her tone edging toward desperation. But I really don't have any other options. Please, just this once. Her plea lingered in the air long after the call ended. I sat there, staring at my phone, torn between guilt and frustration. This was my best friend, the person I trusted most in the world, the person I'd shared countless memories and secrets with. And yet, her request felt like an overstep, a blatant disregard for my boundaries. I didn't know what to do. When she called me, the situation quickly escalated from inconvenient to outright uncomfortable. Her voice on the other end of the line carried a sense of urgency that was impossible to ignore, but it didn't make her request any easier to swallow. He's landing at 8, she said quickly, as though blurting it out might lessen the weight of the words. His hotel room won't be ready until noon, so we need somewhere to go until then. Your place is close to the airport, so it just makes sense. I was stunned, my thoughts grinding to a halt as I tried to process what she was asking of me. The mental picture formed unbidden, the two of them, arriving at my apartment early in the morning, disrupting the quiet solitude of my Sunday. And worse, this wasn't just about her. This was about her boyfriend, a person I barely knew, suddenly becoming part of my space. Wait, I said slowly, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. You're telling me this now? At 7 in the evening, the night before. I didn't want to stress you out, she replied, but the words felt like a hollow excuse. If anything, the lack of notice was more stressful. I could have been out of town or unavailable entirely, and her entire plan would have unraveled. It was thoughtless, to say the least. What's the plan, exactly? I asked, leaning into my cautious tone. You're just going to hang out at my place until his check-in? And why am I only hearing about this now? There was a pause on the other end of the line, a beat too long. Finally, she admitted, I didn't think it would be a big deal. I mean, it's just for a few hours. And he won't get in the way or anything. He's not even planning to come upstairs unless it's okay with you. But it wasn't okay. Not really. I had already expressed my discomfort with him visiting my apartment before. It wasn't because he was a bad person. Everything I'd heard about him from her suggested he was kind, respectful, and deeply caring. It was more about me, about the boundaries I had carefully established for myself and my space. Letting people into my home was something I reserved for a very small, trusted circle. I'd only met him once, at a group dinner, where we'd exchanged polite but superficial pleasantries. He wasn't part of that trusted circle, and I wasn't ready to blur that line. I also knew myself well enough to recognize another layer to my discomfort. My home was my sanctuary, a place where I could retreat from the demands of the world and feel completely at ease. The idea of someone, even someone as benign as her boyfriend, using my bathroom to freshen up, brushing his teeth, maybe even taking a quick shower, felt like an invasion of that sanctuary. It was irrational, maybe, but it was how I felt, and I couldn't pretend otherwise. I don't know, I'm just not sure I'm comfortable with this, I said, my words coming out hesitant but firm enough to carry weight. You know how I feel about people visiting my place. It's not personal, I didn't plan for this. She sighed, the frustration in her voice now mirroring my own. I get that, but this is a unique situation. It's not like we're asking to stay the whole day or make a mess of your place. We just need somewhere to be for a few hours. Otherwise, we'll have to wait in the lobby or find a cafe that's open that early. You can't expect us to sit outside all morning. Her words hit a nerve. On one hand, I understood her predicament. It wasn't unreasonable to want a place to wait comfortably, especially when her options were so limited. On the other hand, it felt unfair to be put in this position, to be asked to compromise my boundaries for something I hadn't agreed to beforehand. It wasn't the first time her relationship had brought complications into my life, but this felt like a new level of expectation. I'm not saying you have to sit outside, I countered, trying to keep my voice steady. I just wish you'd given me more notice. This feels last minute and, honestly, a little unfair. I had plans for the morning cleaning up, getting some things done. Now I feel like I have to drop everything to accommodate something I wasn't prepared for. She didn't respond immediately, and for a moment, I thought I'd pushed too far. But then she said, softer now, I didn't mean to put you in a tough spot. I really didn't. It's just, I don't have anyone else to ask. And you're my best friend. I thought you'd understand. Her words carried an undercurrent of guilt, and for a moment, I felt like the bad guy. She wasn't asking for the world, just a few hours of my time and space. But even so, I couldn't shake the feeling that my boundaries were being dismissed as less important than her needs. It wasn't just about her boyfriend or the timing, it was about the principle of the thing. I need to think about it, I said finally, my voice tight with tension. Let me figure out what I can do. The call ended with an uneasy truce, but as I put my phone down, the anxiety lingered. I knew she was in a bind, but so was I. And as much as I wanted to help her, I couldn't help but wonder, was it wrong to put my own comfort first? Or was this just the price of friendship bending even when you felt like you might break? Her request kept replaying in my mind, each iteration leaving me more tangled in my own emotions. I wanted to help her, I really did. She was my best friend, someone I cared for deeply, and I knew how much this relationship meant to her. But at the same time, I felt like I was being dragged into a situation that I neither signed up for nor felt entirely comfortable with. The matter with my flatmates only added another layer of complexity. We had a clear, unspoken agreement. If any of us had guests over, especially overnight or early morning ones, we informed each other. It was a rule rooted in mutual respect, one that helped us maintain harmony in our shared space. To go against that, even for a few hours, felt like betraying their trust. And to do it for someone who didn't want to be seen or acknowledged only made it feel more uncomfortable. Her suggestion to wait in the lobby, the sparse, impersonal area with stiff sofas and a faint smell of industrial cleaning supplies, wasn't much better. The thought of her and her boyfriend sitting there, awkwardly exposed in public, while I stayed in the comfort of my apartment, left a bitter taste in my mouth. It felt wrong, almost cruel, to let them linger there while I avoided the situation entirely. But at the same time, letting them into my space still felt like a line I wasn't ready to cross. And there was the guilt. The deep, relentless guilt of feeling like I wasn't being the friend I should be. What kind of friend draws a line when someone they care about is in need? Shouldn't I be willing to bend a little, especially knowing how much she has to juggle with her family's strict expectations and the secrecy of her relationship? Was I being selfish? Or was I just protecting the boundaries I'd carefully built for my own peace of mind? I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, the weight of the decision pressing on me. Every time I thought I'd come to a resolution, doubt would creep back in, questioning whether I'd made the right choice. Finally, as the faint light of dawn began to filter through my curtains, I reached a conclusion. When she arrived at 7:30 in the morning, I met her in the lobby. She looked nervous, her boyfriend beside her, clutching a small backpack and trying to appear casual. He greeted me politely, his tone warm and friendly, but I could see the unease in his posture. This wasn't comfortable for any of us. "Hey," I said, giving her a quick hug. "Look, I've been thinking about this all night. I'll let you both wait here in the lobby, but I just can't have him upstairs. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal, but I need to stick to my boundaries." She nodded slowly, her expression a mix of relief and disappointment. "I understand," she said quietly. "I really do. Thank you for at least letting us be here." I stayed with them for a while, chatting to ease the tension and make the situation feel a little less awkward. It wasn't ideal, and I could tell that she felt the weight of my hesitation, but I also knew that I'd made the best decision I could in a difficult situation. When they left for his hotel a few hours later, she gave me a long, heartfelt hug. "I know this wasn't easy for you," she said softly. "Thank you for trying. It means a lot." As I watched them walk away, I felt a mixture of emotions: relief that the situation was resolved, guilt for not being able to offer more, and a lingering sense of gratitude that she at least understood my side of things. Friendship, I realized, isn't always about saying yes. Sometimes it's about finding a way to navigate the uncomfortable spaces in between, to honor both the people we care about and the boundaries that keep us whole. I went back upstairs, my apartment quiet once more, and began tidying up my room. The morning hadn't gone as planned, but in its own way, it had taught me something. Sometimes, life throws you into situations where there are no perfect answers, just imperfect compromises. And sometimes, that has to be enough.